The late afternoon sun spilled through those crystal chandeliers at Riverbend Country Club, painting little diamonds across the white linen and polished silver. From my seat by the window, I could see the golf course stretching like a green carpet all the way to the river, pretty as a postcard. But I didn't pick that chair for the view. No, I picked it because it gave me the best angle to watch the show across the room. My family, my so-called family, gathered to celebrate my mother's 80th birthday. They were laughing, clinking glasses, trading stories like they had it all figured out. Me? I sat a few tables away, watching. That's what I'd learned to do in this family. Watch, not belong. The Williams clan, honey, let me tell you, they're old money, old rules, and older prejudices. They've been carrying themselves like royalty since before I was born. And me? I never played by their script. I was the black sheep, the odd puzzle piece they tried to shove into the wrong box. "Margaret, darling, you look lovely, Betty," my sister-in-law called. Her voice dipped in sugar but sharp as vinegar. "That's Patricia. 30 years of learning how to smile while measuring your worth in the cut of your dress and the weight of your husband's wallet." Then there was her boy, Bradley. He glanced up at me like I'd just tracked mud onto his white carpet. "Oh, hi, didn't expect you here." I leaned in, pulled the chair no one wanted at the very end of the table and said, "It's Mama's birthday. Of course I'd be here." "Of course," his sister Miranda echoed, and if sarcasm were perfume, the whole room would have choked. "So, how's that little venture of yours going?" She said venture like it was a knitting club gone wrong, not a life I'd built with my own 2 hands. I smiled, let her think what she wanted. They never understood what I did, or how I did it. They saw me living in a modest apartment, driving a practical car, and thought I was scraping by. They had no clue the empire I'd built while they were busy golfing and redecorating their kitchens. Uncle Charles chimed in like he always does. "She's still doing that computer thing," he told his wife, as if I wasn't sitting right there. His Margaret gave me that polite smile, same one you give the grocery clerk who bags your milk wrong. Then Mama, my sweet mama, the guest of honor, looked at me with her warm eyes. "Tell us about your travels, dear. Patricia said you were in Asia again." "I was," I said. "Singapore, Tokyo. Working. Still freelancing?" Bradley leaned in, smirk ready. He loved that word freelance. Meant unstable, childish, unworthy in his world. He was 32, sitting cushy in his father-in-law's investment firm, bragging every Thanksgiving about deals he didn't even make himself. I let him have his moment. "Something like that," I said, quiet. They moved on to safer topics. Miranda's charity gala, Charles's golf game, Patricia's latest interior designer. I half listened, half looked around the room, because I knew something they didn't. For over a year and a half, I'd walked these halls not as a guest, but as something much bigger. See, Riverbend wasn't just their clubhouse, it was mine. My family had been members of this club since the 40s, back when my grandfather finally clawed his way into the kind of social circle that would rather slam the door than open it. For them, this place was the crown jewel, tradition, exclusivity, connections that greased palms and opened gates. Funny thing is, for the last year and a half, the crown jewel has belonged to me, but they didn't know that. Not yet. Mama leaned over with a smile. Bless her heart. "The salmon's excellent today, darling. You should try it." "I'll just have the salad," I said. Not because of money, but of course the table assumed exactly that. Miranda pounced. "Still pinching pennies, huh? Must be hard without steady income." This from a woman who never worked a day in her life. I smiled and said what I always do. "I manage." Bradley smirked, leaning back like he was delivering wisdom from a mountaintop. "Ever thought about something more stable? Freelance is cute when you're young, but eventually you need benefits, retirement, insurance, the real stuff." Patricia nodded along, like a bobblehead. I wanted to laugh. They had no clue. See, they still saw me as the broke widow in her modest apartment. They didn't know that after my husband passed, I picked myself up from rock bottom, poured every dime and every tear into building something that lasted. They didn't know I'd taken a crumbling assisted living agency and turned it into a network of homes that now cared for hundreds. They didn't know that investment after investment, I'd learned to play the game sharper than any of them at that table. While Bradley bragged about golf memberships, I was quietly buying properties under their noses. Mama tried to keep peace. I'm proud of all my grandchildren for following their paths. Miranda chimed in too quickly. Oh yes, we all support her choices. That word, choices, landed like a slap. Choices as if I'd stumbled into life instead of fought tooth and nail for it. Then Bradley puffed up his chest. Speaking of choices, I've got big news. Jennifer and I just put in an offer on the Morrison estate. The table gasped like he'd just been knighted. The Morrison estate, 20 acres of manicured heaven, river views, skyline backdrop. The kind of mansion folks wrote articles about. How wonderful, Patricia clapped. That's an achievement, Bradley. He soaked it up. Price was steep, but with my firm position and Jennifer's family ties, we got favorable financing. And then Miranda, of course. It's the kind of place that shows you've arrived. I sat there listening, smiling politely, while my mind flicked back to a phone call 2 weeks earlier. Martha, my advisor had said, the Morrison estate is finally on the market. You still interested? Interested? I'd been circling that estate for over a year, not because I wanted a ballroom to dance in. No, because those outbuildings could be converted into offices, headquarters for the empire they didn't even know existed. Yes, I told him. Offer full asking price, cash, no contingencies. He hesitated. Martha, that's $40 million. I'm aware, I said. Close in 2 weeks. And that, my friends, is the difference between talking big at family dinners and actually holding the deed. Apparently, my cash offer had gone through long before Bradley's financing even left the printer. But at that table, nobody knew. Not yet. Mama turned her kind eyes on me. Martha, you're so quiet. What do you think of Bradley's wonderful news? I smiled, steady. The Morrison estate is a gorgeous property. Whoever gets it will be lucky. Well, that'll be us, Bradley puffed up, grinning like a rooster in a new pen. Jennifer's father knows the seller, so we're confident. I nodded, let him preen, never mentioning that the deed already had my name on it. The meal rolled on, Bradley holding court, bragging about how he'd renovate the mansion, as if he'd already moved in. Miranda droned about her charity work, that networking game women like her call philanthropy. Charles told golf stories no one cared about. Patricia bragged about her cruise, and not one of them asked me a single thing about my life, my work, my travels. I was the ghost at the table, seen but not heard. So I excused myself. Back in a minute. Need to freshen up. The ladies' lounge was marble and mirrors, all old-world pretension. I was washing my hands when I heard the door swing open. Can you believe she actually came? Miranda's voice echoed off the tiles. Patricia's reply was sharp. I thought she'd skip. These gatherings must be miserable for her. Then Miranda laughed. Well, she can't afford anywhere else for a decent meal. This is probably her one shot. It's sad, really, Patricia piled on. 65 years old, no real career, no husband, no prospects. Living in that little apartment, pretending she runs a business. At least she's trying, Miranda added, the kind of faint praise you throw like crumbs to a stray cat. I cleared my throat. The sound cracked the air. They froze, turned, saw me standing there, water dripping from my hands. Their faces went scarlet. Martha. Oh, we were just having a private conversation, Patricia stammered. I dried my hands, slow, steady. I understand. I walked toward the door, but Miranda called after me, voice half sweet, half sour. You know we support you, right? We're family. We want you to succeed. I turned, looked them square in the eye. Their guilt sat heavy, but the condescension still lingered. I know exactly what you want, I said quietly. Then I left them staring at the mirrors they loved so much. Back in the dining room, dessert had been served. Mama's favorite, rich chocolate cake. She smiled warmly as I sat. Martha, I ordered you a slice. I know it's your favorite too. And for a moment, despite the daggers from across the table, I felt truly seen. Mama leaned close, her voice soft. When will you be travelling again, Martha? I worry about you being gone so much. London next month, I said. Berlin in the spring. Charles squinted, trying to sound curious, but really just baffled. More consulting? Yes, I answered, steady. We're expanding our European operations. That one word, we, hung in the air like a spark. Bradley caught it. We? As in, company? I nodded. Williams Solutions. Miranda, still stinging from the bathroom fiasco, leaned in. I thought you were freelancing. I was, at first. I let the silence stretch before adding, but it's grown. How grown? Bradley asked. And for the first time that day, I heard something new in his voice. Curiosity. Before I could answer, the club's general manager, Robert, walked up, polished as always, with that professional smile. Good afternoon, everyone. I trust you're enjoying Mrs. Asfus's William's birthday? Mama nodded politely. It's been wonderful, Robert. Please thank the chef. Of course. Then he turned to me. Mrs. Williams, the quarterly reports you requested are ready. Shall I send them to your usual table? The air in that dining room froze. Forks hovered mid-air. You could hear the hum of the air conditioning and the clink of a spoon from 2 tables over. That'll be fine, Robert, I said calmly, sipping my coffee. He smiled. Also, renovations on the East Wing are on schedule. The new dining rooms should be ready for spring. I'll arrange a walkthrough for 10 a.m. tomorrow. Perfect, I said. I'll be there. Robert left. Silence didn't. It stretched long enough to make Bradley squirm in his chair. Finally, he croaked. Martha, what quarterly reports is he talking about? I let the coffee linger on my tongue before I answered. The club's financial reports. Patricia leaned in, her voice barely above a whisper. Why on earth would you need those? Because, I said, steady as stone, I own the club. The silence was deafening. You could hear a golf cart buzzing somewhere outside. You could hear my heartbeat in my ears. You... what? Miranda whispered. I own Riverbend Country Club, I repeated. Bought it 18 months ago when the old owners decided to sell. Bradley's jaw opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. You bought the real estate, the clubhouse, the course, all of it? All of it, I confirmed. It's been one of my company's best investments. Charles looked at me like I'd sprouted a second head. Your company owns the country club, among other things, eh? We've been diversifying into hospitality and real estate. Patricia's face drained. How much? She whispered. 68 million, I said, plus another 12 million in renovations. That's when Mama laughed. God bless her. A warm, delighted laugh that broke the tension like glass shattering. Her eyes twinkled. Martha, dear, I think you've been keeping secrets from us. Just a few, I admitted. A few? Bradley nearly choked. You own an $80 million club and you call that a few secrets? I smiled. The club is just one asset. Williams Solutions has a diversified portfolio. Charles swallowed hard. How diversified? He asked. Though by his face, I don't think he wanted the answer. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to the summary report my CFO had sent that morning. My voice stayed steady. Currently, Williams Solutions holds between 2.4 and 4 billion in assets, 847 employees, 6 countries, last year's revenue 340 million. The silence at that table wasn't just silence, it was a funeral hush. Miranda finally whispered, You're a billionaire. On paper, I said. Most of it's tied up in the businesses and properties, like the Morrison estate. Bradley's face went pale, then red, then grey. Wait, you closed on Morrison? I nodded. Last week. It'll be our North American headquarters. You bought it out from under me, he stammered. I made a better offer, I said gently. Full asking price. Cash. No contingencies. In business, that usually wins. His voice rose, almost breaking. But you let me brag through the whole meal. You let me tell everyone I was moving in, when you already owned it. I leaned in, calm. You didn't ask if I knew anything about it. and I wasn't about to ruin Mama's birthday with drama. Patricia shook her head, eyes wide. All this time? We thought you were barely making it. We thought you needed help. I know what you thought, I said. I heard you in the lounge earlier, whispering about my little apartment and my so-called struggle. Miranda's face burned red. Martha, I'm sorry. We had no idea you were successful, I cut in. No, you didn't, because you never asked. You assumed. You saw my modest car, my small home, and you wrote a story about me that was easier for you to believe. Charles, honest in his confusion, finally asked, But why? Why live so small if you can live anywhere? Because I don't need a mansion, I said. I travel half the year. When I'm home, I want peace, not a palace to dust. And the car? It's reliable. I don't need a badge on wheels to prove anything. Across the table, Mama was still smiling, her eyes sparkling with mischief. She was loving every second of this. Martha, darling, she laughed. When you were a girl, did you ever dream you'd end up owning the place where we've celebrated all these years? Actually, yes, I admitted. That was part of it. This club has been our family's backdrop for generations. When I saw it was for sale, I wanted to make sure it stayed in the family. So, you bought it out of sentiment? Miranda asked, her voice cracking. Partly, mostly because it was a smart investment. The club was undervalued and underused. We've expanded membership, improved services. It's now one of the most profitable private clubs in the region. Right then, Robert reappeared with a leather portfolio. Mrs. Williams, your quarterly reports. Also, we've had 3 new corporate applications this week. Excellent, I said. We'll review them at next week's board meeting. When he left, Bradley's face had shifted from pride to something closer to humility. Martha, he said softly, I owe you an apology. I've been treating you like you were... I finished his sentence for him. Like I was unsuccessful. His eyes dropped. Yes, exactly that. Bradley finally dropped his head and said it plain. I was wrong. Dead wrong. Patricia's voice was barely a whisper. We all were, Martha. I'm sorry for the things I said, the assumptions I made. Then Miranda, cheeks flushed, leaned in. And I'm sorry for what I said in the ladies' room. It was cruel. It wasn't fair. I looked around that table. The same faces that once dismissed me now wore embarrassment, curiosity, and for the first time, respect. I don't need apologies, I said softly, but I'd like something else. Maybe from here on out, we try knowing each other for real, not through gossip, not through assumptions. Honest conversations about what we're actually building with our lives. Mama's eyes warmed. I'd like that, darling. Would you tell us about your company? I'd love to understand what you've created. So for the next hour, I wasn't the ghost at the table anymore. I told them about my clients, the challenges of running a global business, the victories and the heartbreaks. And you know what? They listened. They asked questions. They cared. By the end of the night, as folks packed up coats and handbags, Bradley lingered behind. Martha, he said with a sheepish grin, are there any other properties I should know about before I go making offers? I laughed. I'll have my assistant send you a list, just to save you some embarrassment next time. He chuckled. That'd be appreciated. And Martha, congratulations. I may not get how you pulled it off, but I can see it's damn impressive. 3 months later, I hosted our first official family gathering as the owner of Riverbend Country Club. Same chandeliers, same chocolate cake, but the air was different. I wasn't at the far end of the table anymore, ignored like background noise. I was at the center. They asked for my advice, wanted to hear my thoughts, even looked to me for guidance on their own finances. The biggest shift wasn't the money, it was the respect. Suddenly, my little side hustle wasn't a hobby. They spoke of Williams Solutions like it was IBM or General Motors. As we finished dessert, Mama reached for my hand. Martha, thank you for saving our club. When they announced it was for sale, I thought we'd lose this place forever. I didn't just preserve it, I said. We've made it better. Patricia added with a self-conscious smile. including for the family members who underestimated the new owner. Especially those, I grinned. And as I looked around the table, I felt grateful. All those years of being underestimated had carved me into steel. They taught me that real success isn't measured by who claps the loudest. It's built quietly, piece by piece, until it speaks for itself. Riverbend thrived under my ownership. It became not just a business, but a symbol of what you can build when you refuse to swallow other people's doubts. And every time I sat at my usual table, looking out at the golf course I now owned, I remembered that whispered comment that had started it all. She can't afford to be here. Now, of course, nobody can afford to be here, unless I say so. But more important than the money, I'd built a place where my family could gather and, for once, see me for who I really was. The quietest person at the table turned out to have the loudest story.